The price of a dozen eggs was up 150% in January from a year prior. So with prices so high at about almost $5 a dozen, according to government data, what can the average consumer do? Well, here's an idea. What about raising your own hens? Joining me now is Lisa Steele. Now, first of all, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. She's a lifestyle expert, chicken keeper, and author of the book, The Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook. Now, Lisa, I wanted to ask you today, with egg prices so high, I don't know how many of us have thought about this. What about raising your own hens for eggs? Is it worth it? Just talk a little bit about that.
I think it's a great idea. It's not necessarily something that you can do in the short term and save any money, but as a long-term investment, absolutely. Anybody who got chickens back in 2008 or 2009 during the recession is pretty happy right now because they've got free eggs in their backyard, but it takes a while to get set up. There's some initial startup costs, and baby chicks don't start laying eggs for about 5 months. So it's not something that you can just, get chickens and expect you're going to start saving money right away.
And on that point, can you talk a little bit in more detail what the process actually entails?
Yeah, first, if people are thinking about it, they should contact their town or municipality, make sure that they can have chickens. A lot of suburban and even urban areas have started to allow chickens. So definitely check with your town, see if there's a limit on how many chickens you can have. There might be a permit you need to get. And then after that, I would say do a little bit of research, maybe read some articles, pick up a book or two, just so you know the basics, what chickens eat and how to take care of them. They're going to need a coop or a house to live in and a pen. So, when they're out during the day, nothing eats them because everything likes to eat chickens. But they're really not too difficult. You feed them, you give them water, you let them out in the morning, you check for eggs, you lock them back up at night. So the basics are pretty simple to kind of get under your belt. And then it's just a question of refining your system and your setup.
I think most of us don't own farms. So I wonder, how much space do you need to raise hens?
Really not a lot. Chickens are small, as you know, and for an average family of 4, 5 or 6 chickens is going to lay about a dozen eggs every other day. So, you'll be getting a lot of eggs, plenty for your family. And for 6 chickens, if you have a coop that's about 4 by 4 or 6 by 4, so not much larger than a doghouse, and a small attached pen, that's going to be plenty of room for them.
So taking in consideration all the cost that is needed to raise hens, 5 or 6, let's say, is it less expensive to buy eggs from the grocery store in comparison?
Yeah, I think it would. It would start to pay off really quickly. Chickens don't eat a lot of food, and you can supplement their diet with kitchen scraps. They eat pretty much everything. So we give our chickens leftover fruits and vegetables and grains and meat. They'll eat everything, so you can cut your feed bill that way. And of course, in the nice weather, they can be outside eating grass and weeds, which will also cut the expense of raising them.
And Lisa, what about how it compares to the grocery store eggs in terms of taste, size? What do you think?
That's where it really comes down to. It's not just the cost of the eggs. You're never going to get eggs as fresh at the grocery store as you get from your backyard, obviously. And the taste is so much better because they are eating a varied diet. But if you do go to the grocery store to buy eggs, you can often find a local farm that might be supplying eggs to your grocery store. So those eggs won't have traveled as far, and hopefully they'll be from a smaller farm, so they will be outside. You want to look for pasture raised on the egg carton, because that means the chickens actually are outside on grass or pasture or wooded area. So if you care at all about how the chicken that laid the eggs you're eating is treated, you definitely want to look for pasture-raised eggs.
How many chickens do you think, at minimum, do you need?
They're flock animals, and they are fairly small, and it's going to take just as long to feed 5 as it would 3. I would say 5 or 6 is a really good starter flock size. That way, if something happens to 1 or 2, you don't have 1 chicken left.
Lisa, I'm curious, maybe I'll ask you this. What do you think the reason is why egg prices have gone up so much?
Really, there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, the price of fuel affects the cost of everything because transportation is more packaging costs have gone up. There has been the avian flu, which has been really bad this year, that has wiped out a lot of commercial flocks. Also, in the fall and winter, the backyard chickens stop laying. They take a break. So people, even who have chickens, are often buying eggs. You've got holiday baking. But I think that one of the big reasons is that the cost of eggs had not gone up in about 40 years. They've been between $1 and $2 a dozen since the 1980s. So realistically, they were due for a price adjustment. You know, a lot of grocery stores were using them as loss leaders, just trying to get people into the store. Of course, eggs are in the back. So you've got somebody walking to the back of the store for that 89 cent a dozen eggs and hopefully filling their cart on the way back. So it was kind of a perfect storm of all these things that came together that just kind of made the price of eggs skyrocket this winter.
Thank you so much today, Lisa. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you for having me.